been a fantastic conference. I have really enjoyed the people, the passion, the talks, the food, everything has been really interesting. Definitely coming back next year, so I'll be back with you. And I just want to point out that there were a number of talks which have been fantastic. So John Willis, his keynote, his opening talk was outstanding. Talk by Shiva was fantastic, but really all the speakers have been interesting, insightful, and I've personally learned a lot. Thank you for having me here. It was great to deliver a talk on serverless architectures, and I'm glad to see that a DevOps conference isn't just about DevOps, but you're open to other ideas and other areas as well. So I think that makes things a lot more interesting and insightful to the audience.
We're here today to talk about the people's revolution in DevOps and to accelerate security, reliability, and speed of delivery by understanding people. So this week I found this awesome Dilbert, which I think you guys will like. The moral of the story is to be Dilbert. So we learn DevOps. All of us here are here to learn all about DevOps. And DevOps is continually changing. We are continually learning. And I think it's good that many of us actually enjoy learning quite a lot. And that's why we're here. And that's why DevOps, part of what DevOps is attractive about it is that there's always new stuff coming. There's always new things to master. There's always sometimes, there's not a feeling of done. And we need to work hard at defining what done is and working towards goals. But overall, it's an awesome place to be. But the important thing that we do need to focus on is how to rock the people factor. And the people factor is not a technical thing. So even though my background is technical, I'm not here to talk about technical. I'm now like a manager. So, I'm the guy that kind of talks a lot and likes to talk a lot and likes to kind of pull my team into talks a lot. I try not to do it too much because then, it pulls them away from the important stuff. But rocking the people factor is an important critical element as a part of DevOps. I think I have to point my clicker that way so it works. Okay, so we want to reduce the bad and we want to improve the good. We want to reduce the bad, we want to reduce things like frustrations for individuals within teams, frustrations within the people we work with, but we want to improve the good. We want to improve capabilities. We want to improve DevOps. We want to improve security. We want to improve reliability. We want to improve a whole bunch of stuff around DevOps, and this kind of improvement will always keep happening. We want to maintain as well, like the good things we have today. So even though we want to kind of minimize the bad stuff, we want to improve the good stuff, we already have some good things today. So it's important to look at the people we have today, the relationships we have today, the systems, the patterns that's worked recently. We want to keep all that stuff while we're moving forward. Now you might be thinking to yourself right now, Dan, you're full of it, people suck, I don't have time to work this out, I don't have time, like this technical stuff takes all of my time and it's a big enough job as it is. But I need to know about people. People are complicated, people are messy, chaos. Actually, yesterday, John Willis in the keynote said something interesting when he was talking about the acronym around CAMS, and he was talking about culture, and he mentioned that culture is actually the most important thing to worry about, or the first thing to worry about. And culture equals people. So when I'm kind of saying people, I'm also saying culture. It's one and the same. So my name's Dan, and I'm the DevOps manager at MYOB. And the aim of today's talk is to define what understanding people means. So I've used the term. We're going to break it down a bit. We're going to look at some, relationships. We're going to look at people dynamics. We're going to kind of look at a few skills and a few methods and patterns that we can apply in like an engineering fashion into people and figure it all out. I pointed it the wrong way. Okay, so I've identified 5 different people groups that I think are important to us. And they're people that we interact with every day. The first group are developers. So they get the nice black and white photo. If you have a look at, or drawing, if you have a look at the drawing here, developers are like a little bit world of chaos, but something magical is going on. And that's what development is like all about, right? You're creating the magic. The second group are delivery teams. Now I've used the picture here as the lion's den. And sometimes delivery teams are like the lion's den for DevOps. I'll explain a bit more why I chose that later on. The third people group are product owners, product managers, project managers, and they like to whip it into shape. So they get the pointy hat, which is like I was thinking today, it's like the best branding thing ever, right? You just put on this kind of hat and you know what it means, it's Devo, right? The fourth group are managers. And so I'm a manager, I can talk about myself, I can say things that might upset managers, it's okay, I'm a manager, it's fine. The fifth group are DevOps engineers and peers to everyone here. So you notice how I've used the same picture, but the black and white version is development. The full color version is like DevOps, right? So when you evolve into DevOps, like everything comes to life. We're now talking full color. Now, I've been in roles, in each one of these roles in the past before. So, I'm going to pay them out a little bit. I'm going to kind of ruffle feathers and stuff. It's okay because I've been there, so it's okay, it's fine. No one will get upset. So developers, let's start with developers. So what drives developers? What are developers into? What are they looking for? I think one of the core things they're looking for is to write good code. There's a lot of resources, a lot of talk, a lot of energy and effort and discussion that goes into development teams forming huddles, forming guilds, forming communities of practice to talk about how can we write good code? How can we implement good patterns? How can we reduce waste? How can we reduce tech debt? How can we bring things to production faster? This is kind of the world and the way developers are thinking. Our approach, when we approach developers, we should gauge the level of interest in operations for each individual. Because if you're talking to a developer and they have some interest in AWS, Azure, serverless, some kind of thing that you're talking about at the present time, you want to bring something to them, if they have an interest in it, that's going to be great. We get to kind of reveal a bit more of the magic behind the curtain. We get to explain more things about it. We have like an engaged audience. If they're not engaged, if they're not interested, then we need to tweak our approach a little bit. We need to be there before they know that they need us. You guys need to be there before they know they need you. And that can be tricky, but it means that we're moving ahead of developers. So we are looking at anticipating problems that are going to come down the path, down the line. We are looking for the potholes. We're looking for the places where we think that they're going to get tripped up. And that's an interesting place to be, because as we're looking at where teams are heading and where they're going and what they're attempting to pull off, sometimes, we can be a bit of a naysayer about it. But I think what we should do in turn is change it into something that's positive. We need to look at that stuff and be there to help them. So I'm kind of phrasing it as, yes, we're looking ahead and we're anticipating certain things to happen. But while we're doing that, we are actually taking the approach of, I'm going to pick this up first, and then I'm going to be there before they know that they need it. We need to be rational, we need to be logical, we need to be consistent, and we need to have a plan. And we need to be willing to discuss all sorts of things. Because developers like to know how things work, just like DevOps engineers want to know how things work as well. So we need to be willing, when we're bringing it to a developer, we need to be willing to talk about it, we need to be willing to answer questions, we need to be willing to explain according to the interest level. I want to tell a bit of a story to explain or give an example for point number 3 about being rational. In MYOB's history, a process was created. Now, this process was created to bring SSL certification and certificates into a production system as it was going into production, and renewals and things like that. Now, at the time, the people who created the process, it made sense, right? You're kind of purchasing something. Sometimes, when you go to purchase an SSL certificate, there can be, a non-trivial amount of money involved. If you're doing like a wildcard cert, it might be $600. If you're doing special EV cert, looking at a couple of grand. So they put some, kind of guidelines around it, some barriers, some hurdles, some approval steps. And at the time, I think for people it made sense. Over time, as MYOB grew, they added something like 20 more delivery teams into the mix. They went from like 5 monoliths into 85 microservices. And when you're working at that scale, now your SSL procedure for procurement gets in the way for teams. And developers, we're not shy about pointing out how irrational it was, how illogical it was when we're trying to move fast, and you guys, the operations guys, are getting in the way. You're blocking us. We have to wait 3 weeks for this thing. This is bad news. So the good thing about this kind of situation, though, is that as DevOps engineers, as a DevOps crew, by solving this problem for developers and bringing out a solution that means you can take the procurement process from 3 weeks into 5 minutes, all of a sudden, the DevOps crews are the heroes. And that hero status, I think, is going to be we're going to drag it out for at least 6 months. So this afternoon, we're going to announce to our development teams that, hey, we've taken it from 3 weeks and now it's 5 minutes. And we've been doing some PR around it. You know, the teams are getting excited. It's going to go off. So that's the good part. Delivery teams. So delivery teams, as I mentioned, is like walking into the lion's den. Now, in biblical times, you know the story about, I think it was Daniel, right? So think me, Daniel, in the lion's den. Things didn't go wrong for Daniel, but the intention was he was going to get eaten. Now, that doesn't always happen in delivery teams, right? But this is kind of what could happen. And the guy on the right-hand side is like the kind of vampire squid guy, right? Like, so they have the potential to suck all the life out of you. Now, I'll explain why, but they have the potential to suck all the life out of you because what are they looking for? What are they looking for? Delivery teams, one major thing they're looking for is more time. They're looking for more people. They're looking to get more things done in the time they have available. And DevOps, because DevOps is such a critical part of the pipeline, a part of the infrastructure, a part of getting awesome products and projects into production in front of customers, DevOps becomes a part of the critical path. And so delivery teams have the potential to kind of suck you in. They say, oh, we need you to help us get this to production. We need you to help you babysit it. We need you to be up at 3 a.m. in the morning and look at it when it goes wrong. You know, there's been people, you know, in MYOB, we've kind of had all variations of DevOps engineers in teams, kind of outside of teams, and we've had a bit of a hybrid as well. But in some teams, when you had one DevOps guy in the team, the delivery team had kind of this kind of natural sway or natural kind of, you know how water runs downhill? For delivery teams, kind of all the crap hits the DevOps guy. Now, those guys in those teams were awesome people. Like, they love helping people. They were happy to be on call 3 years straight every day. But, you know, as a manager, I stepped in that and think, hang on, that's not good. This guy might leave soon, and we don't want that. So what's our approach? Well, I think our approach needs to be consultative first. Our approach needs to build trust. We need to advocate. So we need to be an advocate. There's like this, I'll give an example actually for that one. And we need to lead and direct when appropriate. Now, to be an advocate for a delivery team, being a DevOps engineer means that you're in a special place, right? Even when you're inside a team, you still have this kind of special designation. And you might get special tasks assigned to you that are kind of DevOps related, right? So you're there specializing in the DevOps work. Now, what that means is you can be a little bit more objective. You're not quite in on the same problems that the delivery team are dealing with. And what it means is you have the opportunity to step into some of the situations and provide, or actually act as an advocate. So one example might be when the team are talking to the product manager and they're discussing prioritization, they're discussing tech debt, they're discussing, should we do this DevOps task? Should we take care of this tech debt? What does this mean? What do you think? And we can actually be proactive and step into those conversations and help them make decisions, because we have a view of production, we have a view of operations, we have experience. We've been there when stuff went wrong, we've been there when we've been up at 3 a.m. in the morning, we've been there when they want to release something to production and at 3 a.m. The project manager, well, you try to dial in on the VPN from home because you don't want to have to go in the office at 3 a.m. The VPN's down. What are you going to do? You ring the project manager and say, it's down, I can't get in. They're like, it's okay. We'll try and figure it out. They're kind of squirreling away trying to figure it out. In the meantime, they try to release to production, it fails, and then they think, it's okay, we'll just fix it on the fly, and then we'll put it into production, it should be right. And you're the guy at 3 a.m., your team is the team that's up all night fixing stuff when things go wrong, and kind of people on the other side in the delivery team are willing to take shortcuts because the pain is not quite as strong for them as it is for you. But the ability to step in and offer that wisdom, the position that you hold with the delivery team, is an important one that you can take advantage of and get good results from. Now, product owners, so we know they like to whip it. They whip it into shape, they whip it good. They can also kind of have a bit of a view of a snake oil salesman. This is the guy on the right-hand side. Now, so some product owners, managers, project managers have an image problem, and some DevOps do too, right? So we share the pain. We know how it feels. But what do product owners love? What are they driven by? What do they love? What are they looking for? Well, they like to run with happy customers. So they're looking at customers, talking to customers, looking at feedback from customers and figuring out, are the customers happy? Do they think we're doing a good job? They're looking at data to make decisions with. They're looking for more data that makes sense, more data that tells us whether we're doing the right thing or not, or whether we need to change direction. They're looking at nice, pretty, colourful roadmaps that have been signed off by execs or business leaders. Now, our approach for product owners, this is a tricky one, because we need to learn about business. And yes, it's another thing to learn. But I've put some concepts up here about risk versus reward, opportunity cost, dollars impact in certain decisions. But the core thing here and the opportunity for you guys is to be the bridge and learn how to bridge the gap. Learn what these terms mean. Learn how to phrase operational issues and risks into business risks. Now, an example of that might be to be able to say, look, our code or our platform doesn't scale. It doesn't scale to the level that we want it to scale to. It doesn't scale, because of X, Y, Z technical problems, but what does that mean from a product manager issue, a product owner issue? It means their roadmap is at risk. It means that their timelines are at risk. It means that, the potential revenue that they're expecting from certain numbers of users or customers or certain, certain features to be put into production, all of that is at risk, which is something they care about a lot. So if you can phrase some of the problem solving, some of the solutions in this kind of language, you're speaking their language, and you're going to better connect with them. You're going to better be able to influence prioritization with them. One example of this that I can give, sometimes, if we're talking about delivery teams, and we're talking about product owners and DevOps, how everything interrelates together. There has been, back a little while, sometimes teams can get a little bit dysfunctional, or, challenges can happen, conflict can happen. And when that happens, sometimes you have, if developers, this is also a challenge for developers to talk in business language. When that breaks down, and when they're not quite nailing the business language, you have an issue where the product owner doesn't trust the developers anymore. And it means that when technical issues, operational risks are brought to the product owner to make a decision on prioritization, when these are brought to this person, they're thinking in their mind, is the development team just gold plating, or is this for real? Now, they don't have any technical skills, so they don't have much ability to verify whether what the development team is telling them is true. Now, you can offer a solution for that, not just in terms of operational risk, but you can have a look at the whole system as a living and breathing thing with code that's in a certain state, with infrastructure that's in a certain state. But you know enough to be able to know whether things are looking good or they're not. And so the product owner should be able to come to you and say, well, what do you think? What's your opinion? And these kinds of behaviors and these kinds of conversation with a product owner builds trust, because you're bridging their world into the technical world, which is sometimes a space they don't understand. If they've got a technical background, it might be a little bit different. But for those that don't, the technical area is, sometimes magical, sometimes scary. Sometimes they may not have the confidence to be able to make a call on something because their world is driven by data. if you can offer them objective data to help them make decisions, then that's a good thing. So managers. Don't let managers code. That's the first thing. I noticed there was a question in Slack about that yesterday. Don't let managers code. When I used to be a developer, I did some pairing with an engineering manager before. Let's just say they don't let him code anymore. I mean, the commits were under my name, but I blame him. Managers, what are they into? What are they looking for? What are they driven by? Well, managers like I said, managers like to talk a lot. Managers like to communicate. Managers are really focused on people. So the scope for a manager, they're asking themselves, are my people happy? Who do I need to go and stomp on today? Sometimes that's the reality of it, right? So what do? Well, our approach should be to ask questions until we understand, and then to keep asking questions. We need to communicate often. The manager should kind of have an open gateway and open communication with everyone, but you guys are on the side of the DevOps scenario, so you're offering great communication from your end to a manager. You voice your opinion. Always ready to voice your opinion, even if you disagree. You voice it. It's up to the manager to take it from there, but you need to voice it. Your job is to take risks. Your job is to make a decision and move forward and be willing to be wrong. Now, sometimes you might have option A or option B. And option A or option B, are kind of both are right. So it's a hard decision to make. Sometimes you got pros and cons on each side. Sometimes you kind of don't know. There's still too many unknowns to actually know what the end result's going to be. There's still a risk of getting things wrong. But managers want you to make the call and move forward. And if it's wrong, if you have to go back and redo it, that's fine. The willingness to be wrong, the willingness to drive forward, we're not always going to have all the information that we need to make the call. So DevOps peers. So we know that when we reach the land of DevOps, we're dealing in full color. We've all gone magical in full color. On the right-hand side, we've got a picture of, things can get a little bit fiery sometimes. Sometimes, when you're bouncing things off of each other, things can get intense. You have, very strong opinions. If you've got a room full of engineers, you've got a room full of opinions. One for every engineer. And what are DevOps peers, what are your peers looking for? What drives them? A big thing for, I took a bit of an informal survey around the teams at work and said, what drives you? What's it all about? What's awesome about DevOps? Why do you like it? And one of the big things that came out was a desire to help people. So they're very focused on now, they didn't start with that, but if you kind of dig a little bit deeper, the actual core reason behind some of the responses I got was actually, one person said to me, well, actually, can I take my original answer back and actually say, I like to help people. And so that happened a couple of times. You peel back the layers, you get to what's really underneath the surface, what's really motivating people. So what do you do for your peers? Well, an important thing is to figure out their strengths and their weaknesses, their loves and their hates. Find out which guy hates Windows, find out which guy hates Apple, find out which guy hates Android, all those things, right? Hang out with them, be honest, even if, you've got criticism, be constructive, but be honest. And give props. Now, give props, I think, is it's on the bottom, but it's one of the most important things on this slide. If you give props to someone and you do it, in the corner and no one else notices, that means something. But really, when I'm talking about giving props here, I'm talking about doing it in front of the team. Make a song and dance about it in front of the team. And that is something you can do for your peers that you'll get back in return as something you're giving to them. It's like a present, a blessing you're giving to them. And it really builds trust in teams. It really builds warm, strong people connections within peers, in peer groups. Finding out their strengths and weaknesses. When I used to be a developer back in the day, I worked with this guy, and he's still a mate now. He's an awesome guy. And I was working at another workplace, so I'd moved on, and he applied for a job at this place. And the kind of standard thing is you have a code review session, right? So he wrote a little coding exercise and he submitted his code. I looked at the code and the code was awful, right? And it was my mate. I was like, yeah, it was a bit of a cringe factor when I was reading his code. But the thing is, I knew how this guy worked because I'd worked with him for like a year in a pretty intense project. We'd worked, under the pump, under pressure, kind of brothers in arms, right? I knew how the guy thought. And there'd been plenty of times when I'd been honest with him, he'd been honest with me, not always kind of nice and friendly stuff. We kind of had it out sometimes. We had a bit of a reputation actually in the office that we would butt heads a little bit. But it was all good. Like he's a mate. But sometimes we disagreed about things. But when I saw his code, I knew exactly why he'd written his code that way because I knew how he thought. I knew how his brain worked. I'd kind of, you don't figure out everything there is to know about someone, but I had a lot of his thought patterns and philosophies and approaches to problem solving. I knew all that about him. So when I looked at his code, I looked at it from that view, from that perspective. So I knew exactly why he did that. The other developers, though, when they looked at his code, were like, I don't know if we should touch this guy. Like, check out this guy's code, man. But I was able to convince them, no, like this guy is awesome. We need him. We need those kind of skills on the team. And we ended up hiring him and he's been doing awesome stuff. So that's great. It works. So who's heard of the 5 whys? Put your hand up. Okay, a few people, yeah. So the 5 whys, I think it originated in Toyota and they use it for like root cause analysis, figuring out what's the actual root cause of this problem. And you kind of peel back the layers, right? Business analysts use it a lot to understand the core drivers behind, what users are telling them or what developers are telling them. Get to the core, break down stories, why do we need this or why do we need that? Get down to the actual core thing that's important to this bit of software or to this feature. The 5 whys can be used to figure out people as well. So that's one of the things in the toolkit that you should practice and learn how to do. So one example would be, if someone said to you, DevOps is awesome, all right? You say, okay, why? There's one why. DevOps is awesome. Why is it awesome? They say, well, because it encourages automation. They're into automation, right? You go, okay, why? Why is automation good? So you make no assumptions about it. You're just asking the question, why is automation good? They made a statement. You're asking the why. They say, why is automation good? Okay, you say, well, automation is good because it reduces human error or error-prone things. That if they were done manually, things would go bad. Okay, so you're saying that errors are bad. All right, why are errors bad? We're still making no assumptions here, right? Why are errors bad? And they say, well, errors are bad because when errors happen, systems can go down. Yeah, okay, that's bad. Systems can go down. All right, let's go to number 4. Why is it bad that systems go down? This is like play school a little bit, right? But trust me, it's good. So why is it bad when systems go down? And they say, well, when systems go down, customers are not happy because they've paid for their software, they expect it to work when it's convenient for them. We're talking cloud stuff here, right? So when it's convenient for them, in the middle of the night, they sit down at MYOB, they might be sitting down to do their books and their accounting. They're a business owner. Like business owners do not like doing books, right? Like I used to be a business owner, I know how they feel. So they don't want to be doing it, but they kind of force themselves, middle of the night, I'm gonna get this done, the BAS is due tomorrow. If the system's down, well, they're already stressed out, right? So they're not gonna think very highly of your software at that point in time. Now that took 4 whys, which is awesome, right? We didn't even have to get to the 5th one. The core reason why DevOps is good, is awesome, is because it prevents that situation from happening. It keeps customers happy, it keeps the system up so that when the customer wants to use the software, it's available to them. Now, another thing that we can put in our toolkit to figure people out is listening. And it's actually very hard to listen. Way back, I was kind of facilitating a group, and they had this training for the facilitators. And in the training, they taught you to ask a question and then shut up. And let me tell you, it was like I don't know, watching paint dry, watching grass grow. It was like intense to have to ask the question. Sometimes it felt like a full 5 minutes had gone past where no one had said anything. And you're a facilitator. Your job is to care for the group and promote discussion. And if no one's talking, that means there's no discussion, which becomes, am I doing the right thing? You start to get a bit anxious, right? But it was all about listening. Now, for us, listening is about distractions. So when you're talking to someone, are you distracted by something else? Are you thinking about something else? You just had a fight with your DevOps peer or an argument about something? Are you interrupting them when they're trying to talk, when they're trying to explain something? You know, sometimes if you're looking or you're kind of figuring people out, you kind of realize that sometimes people need a bit more space to think about things, and they might pause, but they're not finished. And if you jump in, they don't get the chance to finish what they're trying to tell you, so they don't feel listened. Body language is very, very important, sometimes, many times subconscious, but that can communicate a lot. And there's lots of studies about, you know, how much that communicates versus what we say. It's a lot. So we need to be careful about that. We need to learn how to have good body language with people. We need to figure out the emotions behind the words. Now, figuring out the emotions behind the words is an interesting one. This one takes probably a bit of practice, because sometimes people will use words, but you know, they're kind of meaning something else. Way back when I used to be a product manager, there was a bunch of customer feedback that I was going through. And previously, the head of marketing had gone through this feedback, and they'd come to the conclusion that customers were saying a certain thing. There's something lacking in the product, and this is what it is. I can't remember what the actual thing was, but when I looked through the feedback, I said, yeah, okay, that could be true. There could be a problem there, but I think they're actually saying something else. And I had to look for the emotions behind the words. Your attitude is important. The quality of your presence is important. Whether you're actually there and actively listening says a lot. And your non-verbal behavior is also a big one. So this is my contact details. My website's down at the moment, just in the spirit of DevOps. We'll be up tomorrow. I'll put the slides up there so you can get them there. Take a photo if you want. The last link on the bottom is a Hack Day link that our team had built like a puzzle online, so you can go there and figure it out. It's really cool. So you can ask some questions now if you want to ask some questions before I kind of finish it up. Or you've got some for me?
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, I just have a couple of quick ones, just mindful of time. How many people do you have a DevOps team at MYOB?
So today we have 2 teams of about 6 or 7 each. So it's about 14 rough at the moment, and we're expanding, doubling that this year.
Cool. You used a code example where the code test was awful, but you still ended up hiring the guy.
Yes.
So in your opinion, are code tests useful, and what things are you looking for when you're hiring people? Okay, so coding tests, in my opinion, they just have to be good enough to get an interview. As long as I can see that you've thought about things in a certain way, so that means you've written tests against what you're writing, you've kind of thought through some well-structured patterns, maybe that's around like object-oriented, maybe you've kind of looked at the domain that you're solving the problem in and you use certain design patterns to solve it, that there's some thought, there's some process involved, but I'm not looking for perfection in that kind of thing. It only has to be good enough to kind of say, okay, you think in the right way, so we have an interview and we have a chat. Do you have any experiences with virtual teams or geographically distributed teams, offshore teams?
Yeah, so we have teams in Sydney, in Auckland, and in Christchurch, and in Melbourne. In Melbourne, we have like 3 offices in Melbourne now, so there's lots of people everywhere. And it is difficult to kind of keep people on the same page, especially from our point of view, like as DevOps, we're supporting teams across these geographical regions. And to actually bring them together, we use things like Slack, which is actually working really well. I go there probably once a month and send people over there from the DevOps team. So we are there often, and we do touch base with them often. We've got like VC and things like that which work as well. I think part of it is that when I'm talking about this human connection, part of this human connection is also like establishing this across the borders as well. And I think if you can create, like I actually found when I went there in person, the connection with people and the actual traction you get in terms of DevOps and expanding people's minds and adopting some new practices, that accelerated quite dramatically in person. So haven't quite nailed how to do that virtually, but yeah, definitely being there in person is an important thing.
Cool. Thank you, Dan. Thanks very much. I think we've got a few more questions on Slack, so if you have some time, maybe you can jump on and answer them later.
Can I just finish off one more thing?
Go for it.
So in summary, people are really important and we need to get this done. And your job is to take action. Next week, aim to understand the people around you, figure out what drives people, and find a way to deliver what they're looking for. There's the Q&A, which we've done. Okay, what will happen if we don't do this? So if we don't do this, I think we're going to limit what we're going to be able to achieve in terms of DevOps. We're going to cap ourselves, which we don't want. Now, by doing this, we're going to open ourselves to new opportunities and new levels of actually getting uplift in security and reliability and speed of delivery, which is all we want.
Thank you, Dan.